Hello and welcome to another Pauper video. I'm kalikaiz and today we're going to be going into the decks of the week. This covers the recap of the Magic Online trophies for the week of 10/20 to 10/26, as well as the Pauper challenges. Before we get into it, check out cardmarket.com, the largest seller of Magic the Gathering cards in Europe, if you want to pick up these cards. Make sure to check out patreon.com/kalikaiz for sideboard guides and other information. Also, the members section of the YouTube channel has early access to videos if that's kind of your thing. And otherwise, like and subscribe, leave me a comment, let me know what you thought about this kind of thing. We get good feedback on this stuff, data-driven things, but make sure to share it because it doesn't get that much reach. So I would really appreciate that. So let's hop into the info. First of all, we see the meta report here. We had 150 trophies this week, which was up from last week, which I do enjoy. More people playing Pauper's good. But a lot of those trophies were mono red, 20% of the trophies. Unfortunately, mono red is still just very strong. And second place is Affinity with 11.3% and 17 trophies. Jund Glee taking the next spot with 10 trophies. Jund and Black Green both had trophies this week, so the total of 15 puts it in third place behind Affinity. Next place deck was Elves, then Dimir Terror and White Weenie. Gruul Ramp was the only Gruul version this week with 7 trophies at 4.67%. So it seems that Ponza not really viable, and that makes sense with mono red being a thing. It seems like Affinity with the Krark-Clan Shaman Toxin Analysis combo to give your Krark Death Touch and wipe the board is very good against the Gruul decks, so maybe it's keeping them in check. We also had we had a decent amount of Turbo Fogs with 6, then some Madness Burn, some Pawgates, and some Boros Synth showing back up, and a lot of one-ofs with 12 singletons all getting trophies, which was very cool. I even managed a trophy with Ruby Storm with the list that is coming up in a video tomorrow. So if you're interested, you want to get that ahead of time, it's on, you know where to see it. Otherwise, you'll see it in 24 hours, hopefully, unless whatever. Anyway, so let's go to the actual metagame when you combine it. The only one I had to combine was Glee combo. So mono red still 20%, Affinity 11, Glee combo 10%, just like I described above. So not very many decks making up the largest proportion of the metagame, and then a very large amount of decks taking up the rest of the metagame. So these pie slices are teeny tiny. These are huge, and I think that's just going to be the way that it continues to be. If we head into the Pauper challenges, it's slightly more varied, it looks like. But then after you get past the top few decks, it just drops off with very few pilots overall over the entire weekend. Number 1 deck for the weekend was Red Kuldotha, sporting only a 44.9% non-mirror win rate, not very good. Number 2 deck was Mono Blue Terror, not even breaking the 52% win rate. And then the 3rd and 4th place decks had a decently positive win rate with 52%-ish each. Grixis Affinity at 9% of the metagame, and then Jund Brood-Scale. Gruul Stompy following that up with an abysmal win rate, likely due to, I don't know, bad pairings, bad variants, but also that Toxin Analysis combo potentially. And then Golgari Brood-Scale coming in with an extremely high win rate of 64%. Now, the Brood-Scale decks have been moving on to the Shambling Gas tech that I highlighted yesterday. I think that that's definitely a very, very large improvement for the deck itself, as it can help to beat the red menace. We have a lot of Colony Garden and Shambling Gas tokens to block and work your way up to Suffocating Fumes or Weather the Storms, giving it a better win rate versus Red Kuldotha. And I believe, according to the data, it was around 70% versus red in this weekend. After that is a Control and Rakdos Madness, but the best performing deck of the weekend was, looks like, Turbo Fog. Turbo Fog, 5 pilots with a 20-10 record. Really, really strong. Look at those Turbo Foggers go. That's awesome. So now, if we check out the place list, we've got Walls combo from Apis72. This uses something like Axebane Guardians or Overgrown Battlement with an Irachi Leaf Color in play to filter your green mana into whatever mana you need, and then untap via Galvanic Alchemist, Soul Bonding, or Freed from the Reel, where you can pay mana to untap your creature, but your creature is making way more mana than required, giving you infinite mana. Once you have infinite mana, you can venture your opponent to death with Secret Door, you can blast them with Valakut Invoker, or draw your deck into those win conditions with Third Pass Savant. One thing that people don't recognize is that this deck is resilient to removal spells via Drift and Phantasms, which not only transmutes for your win conditions, it also can transmute for itself. So you transmute for a Drift, and transmute again, grabbing Reaping the Graves, casting Reaping the Graves, getting all your drifts back, and potentially any other creatures that had died this turn. I know I personally got blown out by letting the stack get high and then board wiping my opponent. Whereas if I was playing against them smartly, I could have waited till their upkeep when the storm was 0 and used my Corkland Shaman to wipe the board, playing around the Reaping the Graves. Second deck that I wanted to highlight. This is not super fancy, but it shows the Aristocrats tech that I was talking about. We have Shambling Ghast as a 4/of, makes a treasure when it dies, or it can give a creature -1/-1. And then Greedy Freebooter always makes a treasure when it dies, plus it scries. So you're combining those with Village Rites and a Corrupted Conviction, and winning the game with Nadir's Nightblade as a 2/of. But this deck is playing Jund, specifically to put Writhing Chrysalis into the deck, which I think also helps versus one of the worst matchups in Mono Blue Terror, if you're just the black-green deck. Additionally, these creatures, providing chump blockers, is good against terrors. Writhing Chrysalis can block those Delvers all day, and you have a bunch of ways to deal with the opponent's stuff. This deck also plays Pyroblast for terror, Accursed Marauder, likely versus terror, and also maybe versus sacrifices a non-token creature. So this could be very good against Bogles, as they couldn't just go ahead and sacrifice their spawn token that they have lying around. The next deck that I wanted to highlight was Mono Red Synthesizer by Kwa or K, not sure. But this isn't really your normal Kuldotha Burn. This is a straight up Goblins deck. Founders Street Denizen says whenever another red creature enters the battlefield under your control, it gets +1/+0 until end of turn. And Kuldotha Rebirth makes 3 1/1s. So on turn 1, you play this. Turn 2, you make Artifact, play Kuldotha Rebirth, swing in for 4. Next turn, you Blast Runner, Bushwhacker, they're super dead. Goblin Sledder can also sacrifice creatures to save your creatures from removal spells by giving a creature +1/+1, which turns on the Blast Runner. Goblin Grenade as a Lava Axe is pretty strong, and then you also have a Fire Blast to close the game. This person's playing pretty standard sideboard as well. Here we have White Green by Love Crayons, which essentially this is a normal White Weenie deck, but they're playing Basilisk Gate. And they've got Ceruli Gatekeepers in the sideboard, as well as Scattershot Archer. So some ways of splashing green, and they have Evolution Witness to get back their creatures. Outlaw Medic and Sacred Cat, so they have 6 lifelink creatures to suit up with the Basilisk Gate and slam in. They also have Greatsword of Tyr, which is one of those sneaky cards that's pretty cool. It says whenever equipped creature attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on it and tap up to 1 target creature defending player controls and equips for a white. So you can continuously make your creature bigger and bigger and bigger. It works really well with Evolution Witness. Wow. Because that's a combo. You're just going to get stuff back from the graveyard. I did not see that one. That's really sweet too. Whoa. Here we have 4-color Ephemerate. This deck is essentially Jeskai Wildfire, but instead of playing red removal spells, they're playing Cast Down and Snuff Out. So once you get your Swamp online, you're just going to have free removal spells. It is a little bit sketchy because they don't have a lot of life gain in the main deck, but they do have Crypt Incursion. Exile all creatures from target player's graveyard, and you gain 3 life for each card exiled this way. Either they feel like that it's going to combo with their removal spells, or they really didn't want to lose the Cycle Storm. They have Mystical Teachings to get the Crypt Incursion or Breath Weapon, and the Castigate's a sorcery, so they can't grab that. So it's just like Breath Weapon and Snuff Out, Cast Down, and Ephemerate. it's cool that they get to play the teachings here. Sideboard has Union of the Third Path as a one of for life gain, and a couple other techie pieces. Now, moving on to the Spice of the Week. This is Serpentine Curve by Intellectual. This deck wants to play a giant creature. So you have only removal spells and card draw in your deck. You're eventually going to have enough cards that you played that you have a 20/20 fractal. You will now throw it at your opponent with a Rite of Consumption. Deals damage equal to the sacrifice creature's power to target player. You could also just play a value curve and hope to get there with the beats. You have Hard Evidence as a blocker and 4 Brainstorm, 4 Consider. It makes sense to play Consider in this deck as you're trying to get rid of your library so that you have a giant snake. And few other ways of getting card advantage through Frantic Inventory, Lorien Revealed, and Behold the Multiverse. This deck is pretty sweet. I think it's awesome that they were able to trophy a league here. Hopefully you enjoyed this look into the decks of the week, and I'll see you in the next video.